These are my UFC Fight Night Cannonier versus Borralho fight predictions. Let's get on. First fight of the night. It's a featherweight fight between Francis Marshall, who's 12-4, and Dennis Bazooka, who is also 12-4. I'm pretty sure Francis Marshall is taking this fight on short notice. Props to him, but he's gonna lose. So we all know that Dylan Buckus is a pretty decent striker. He's very powerful. In his last fight, he knocked out Carter Matthews, who was a decent prospect. And I think he's going to do the same thing to Francis Marshall. I mean, so the thing is, Dylan Buckus' weakness is if he faces a strong grappler, his striking could be like neutralized because he's going to be getting controlled. And Marshall is like a decent wrestler. He has decent ability to control his opponents, but he's not good at closing the distance. And I don't think he's going to be able to use his striking to get the takedowns. The outcome of this fight's going to depend on like who can use their like their style to win the fight. If Francis can close the distance and get the takedowns, he's going to win. If Dennis can throw those powerful punches, he's going to win. But we all know that Dennis can maintain the distance and avoid getting taken down. He's going to win in the strike lane. So I'm going to say Dennis Bazooka is going to win this fight, KO, second or third round. He's going to control the striking. Francis hasn't had a full camp. Francis is going to be gassed and he's going to get knocked out. Dennis Bazooka, winner by knockout. That's my prediction. Book it. Next fight to predict, it's going to be Zachary Reese versus Jose Medina. Jose Medina should not be in the UFC. He's not a good fighter. He lost his Contender Series fight. Jose Medina hasn't really been in any major MMA promotions. He's mainly a fighter on the regional circuit. However, if you look at their fighting styles, Jose Medina isn't that great of a fighter. Let's look at their physical attributes. Let's compare their size and reach. Jose Medina is 4 inches shorter. Jose Medina, shorter reach. Look how fat Jose Medina looks in that picture. I'm not picking a fat fuck like Jose Medina. Look at Zachary Reese in that picture. And let's look at their UFC performances. Zachary Reese has 1 loss. So fucking what? To Cody Brundage. Who cares? He had the submission and Cody Brundage got lucky with that slam. And you know what Zachary Reese did? He came out of his next fight, proved his point, got a KO. You know what? This man's KOing Jose Medina. Jose Medina's a bum. He shouldn't be in the UFC. He should not be a plus 300 underdog. This should be a huge margin in this fight. You know what? If Jose Medina wins this fight, I'm quitting like predictions. I'm quitting this YouTube channel. Jose Medina's not winning. I'll guarantee you that. I would put my life savings on Zachary Reese to win this fight. On to the next. This fight takes place at lightweight. It is Slavic Laws. Borshev versus James Lamport. I'm gonna go with Borshev to win this fight, even though he did get clipped in his last fight against Chase Hooper. He still has very good striking. He's a great kickboxer, and James Lamport doesn't have grappling on the level of Chase Hooper. So I'm gonna say this fight's gonna stay on the feet, and Borshev can just outclass him. Borshev's a good fighter. He's training with a good camp. James Lamport's not training with that level of camp, I believe. Borshev's training out of Team Alpha Male. He had an extensive kickboxing career. He has experience on the feet. I'm pretty sure he said he had like 200 kickboxing fights or something crazy like that. James Lamport does not have near that experience. He's just not that great of a fighter compared to Borshev. Again, I'm pretty confident with this pick. James Lamport hasn't done jack shit in the UFC for the most part. Yeah, he's 0-1 in the UFC. He won on the Contender Series, but it was a unanimous decision. Usually you want a fun fight on the Contender Series. So I'm going to have to go with Borshev in this one. He's a shorter guy, but he has a shorter reach too. But his striking is just levels above James Lamport. I could see Lamport. Sometimes you see those weird fights at the apex, you know. Like I don't know. Sometimes there's something in the water at the apex where the underdog can pull something out, but I don't think that's gonna happen here. I mean, Borshev has knocked out people in the UFC. He has 2 knockout wins. 2 of his losses are by unanimous decision, which I'm not too concerned about. He lost to Chase Hooper, but did he really tap? That's the question. He was getting dominated. He would have lost the fight anyways. But Borshev, I'm going to have to go with Borshev winning this fight. Alright, up the card. The next fight is Edmund versus Gerald Marshall. Gerald Marshall is a very old... He's been in the UFC for a while, that's all I'm going to say. So I'm going to go with Edmund Shabiz for the reason. He's a big favorite for a reason. He has very explosive striking. He has good finishing ability. He has a background in boxing. Combine that with like the knockout power he has, man, in those gloves he's dangerous. He's a pretty good grappler. He has a good grappling foundation, so I don't think that's going to be a problem for him. I don't think he's going to use grappling at all in this fight. He has some vulnerabilities against experienced, like high-level grapplers, and he doesn't have great endurance when it goes into the later rounds, but I think in 3-round fights he's going to be fine. Gerald Meerschaert is a very experienced grappler. He has a strong submission game, but I don't see him getting the takedowns. Meerschaert's very skilled on the ground, but his striking is not developed. Like, he's an old UFC fighter, but he doesn't have that. He's not a crafty veteran like Lucas Tracy would say. He can be vulnerable against like powerful strikers, and I could see him getting put away in this fight. Maybe, who knows? We can see fucking Gerald Meerschaert pull something out of his ass. If it goes into like the 3rd round and Edmund's throwing his bloat, I think he could get submitted, but I think Edmund's gonna win this fight pretty convincingly. So I'm gonna have to go with Edmund beating Gerald Meerschaert in this fight. On to the next. So this is the UFC featherweight fight that just happened on the Ultimate Fighter. Colin Off has beat one decent fighter and one great fighter. He did beat what's his name? He beat I'm forgetting his name. I'm blanking. Shit. Oh, he beat Rudy on the Contender Series, and I was really going for Rudy Rutz to win that fight. He's a great grappler. He's the 4th best featherweight for like non-UFC fighters in Australia and New Zealand. He's definitely a good fighter. He's beat experienced fighters too. He's a good grappler. But you know what? I'm saying that Marlon Santos is coming in with that favela grit. He has one loss in his career, and that loss was to a very experienced UFC fighter, Dan Arguedo. And I think he's going to show that favela grit. He's going to win the fight. He's going to get his UFC contract. Man, when they were doing that run-through, his house was fucking, like, he was from the favelas. Con Offley's living his life in Thailand. I don't think he wants this fight as much. Both of them are very well-rounded fighters. Sometimes we can't get the full extent because this is technically their UFC debut, but I'm going to have to go with Marlon Santos. He had a good performance tonight from the Contender Series that I watched, and he had a really good performance against Edwin Cooper, who fights out of John Jones' gym, and Albuquerque, who is one of the favorites to win the show, so I'm going to have to go with Myron Santos. On to this next fight, Michael Morales versus Neil Magny. Neil Magny has a well-rounded game, what can I say? He's a crafty vet. He has effective grappling, he has a high pace, he has like a I'm pretty sure he has a crazy reach advantage over most of his opponents. He fraud checked Michael Morales in this fight, but he can struggle against. I don't know. I don't think he's gonna fraud check Michael Morales. I'm a really big Michael Morales guy. He's a promising up and comer. He's strong all around. Like, I don't think there's anywhere that Neil Magny can break him. He's super early into his career, and he lacks those he lacks the experience fights, and Neil Magny could be a crafty vet in this fight, but I don't see it happening. Both fighters are great strikers, but Michael Morales is just a level above. And even if this goes to the ground, I think Michael Morales is going to win. My only question, this happened to Mike Malott. Magny's experience in the UFC, he can push a pace over 3 rounds, and we don't know how good Morales is over 3 rounds. But I'm going to have to go with Michael Morales. And do you know my one problem with this fight? How is this not the co-main event? We have one of the best up-and-coming South American. No, he's a future star. I think he beats a lot of the guys in the welterweight rankings. I think Michael Morales versus Jeff Neal would be a really good fight, but let's focus on this fight right now. So Michael Morales, like I said, he still has to build that experience, but I think he's going to go out there and beat Neil Magny. But I think this fight should be the co-main event. Why are we having women's co-main event? Who gives a I'm not predicting women's fight, because who gives a fuck about the women's fight? On to the next fight. Bro, All I'm gonna say is this man has aura. Robert Valentin has aura. Like throughout the whole show, he's had incredible aura. Like I know that term is overused, but he definitely has it. And Ryan Loder is definitely a very good wrestler. He's training out of a good gym too, but so is Robert. And Robert's managed to avoid the grappling position. He's had one of the most dominant runs in tough history, in my opinion. Even Dana White said that, and I don't see Ryan Loder losing this fight. I think if he gets taken down, I think he can find the submission. He found the submission against Patty. Ryan Loder, I feel like he's just kind of a wet blanket, and I was watching the Guru predictions earlier, and Guru said that Robert Valentin just has the style to beat these grapplers, and I do think that's like the right thing to say. He does have the style. Ryan Loder is also kind of up there in age. He's 33. He's pretty. He's a good fighter. I'll give him that. But I don't think he's on that level that he needs to be to beat Robert. So I'm gonna have to go with Robert Valentine to win this fight off of aura. No, no, no. I'm just joking. I think Ryan's gonna shoot in for a takedown maybe, and then maybe get positions reversed, and Robert's gonna win the fight by ground and pound. Or I could see him winning by KO or a crafty submission. He's just an all-around great fighter, and I want to see Robert Valentin before Yuri retires, or if Robert gets to this position, Robert versus Yuri. That's just the fight that needs to be made. That would be crazy to see, because I feel like Robert, when he first came on the show, I was going through all the tough comment sections. Oh, this guy's just a Yuri 2.0, which he is. He has that very he has that type of style where he is Yuri. He fights with his hands down. He's a good fighter, but he has an unconventional style. He's kind of has the same personality as Yuri too. They both believe in like the wood stuff. I don't know. He slept outside on a bed because he said he wants to be with nature. And I feel like Ryan Loder is gonna get signed to the UFC like after this fight regardless. But I don't see him being crafty enough to beat Robert Valentin. I don't think he has the experience. And Robert's training out of a good gym too in Switzerland. He also went to Thailand for a little bit and was training Muay Thai. I think his grappling's on the level where it needs to be to beat Ryan Loder too. He has to be just spamming takedown defense right now. So I do think he's going to win. So I'm going to have to go with Robert Valentin to win this fight by KO. It has to be finished. I don't see this fight going the distance. He's very reckless on the feet, and Ryan Loder could catch him, but I haven't seen Ryan Loder striking on a high enough level to know where he is. We know he's a great wrestler, like you can see in the picture. He wrestled at UNI, but I think he's up there in age. He's definitely, both of these guys are definitely high level fighters. A lot of these guys on Ultimate Fighter this year, I believe, are better than a lot of current UFC fighters. I was thinking about that while watching Dana White's Contender Series too. Why are the Contender Series fight cards better than the UFC fight cards? It's crazy to me. All those guys out there are hunting for finishes. Like, at least the one tonight, I'm pretty sure it was three out of the 5 fights were finishes. You don't see that in the UFC anymore. And they were all 3 KOs, so it was fun to watch, but Tough's fun this year. I think it was because of the international cast. But yeah, this should be a really good fight. On to the main event of the evening, which is also at middleweight. It is Jared Cannonier versus Caio Borralho and the Fighting Nerds. What a camp that is. They're all undefeated in the UFC right now. Caio Borralho's only loss comes outside the UFC, and I'm surprised he's the favorite. Cannonier has knockout power. He has explosive striking. He is a very accurate striker. He has threat. He has knockout power. He's fought all the high level opponents in the middleweight division, and even maybe light heavyweight division too. Cannonier has like so much. He's 42. He has so much experience in the UFC against those top level opponents. I think he will be able to fight throughout the fight to the different styles. He has great takedown too. His ability to keep the fight standing and avoid getting controlled on the ground against grapplers is actually huge for him. He has good cardio too. I mean, some people think he slows down a little bit in this fight, but I don't really see it as much as them. And then, if he's able to keep a pace against Strickland and win the fight, I think he definitely has good enough cardio. And I don't think Caio Borralho is just going to take him to those deep waters. Cannonier's a crafty vet. Come on, guys. He's going to beat those big, meaty hooks of Caio Borralho. I mean, Borralho has great submissions. He's known for his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He has ability to get takedowns and control opponents, but like we just said, Cannonier can get out of those takedowns, so it'll be very interesting to watch. I think he could capitalize on a couple Cannonier's mistakes, but I don't think Cannonier's going to make those mistakes. Borralho's not that great of it. Like, he's a good striker, but I don't think he has a. I feel like if he had a weakness, it would be his striking. His striking's not as developed as his jiu-jitsu. If he cannot close the distance against Cannonier, I think he's gonna struggle in like the stand-up exchanges. And my other problem with him is he doesn't have that high level competition. So I'm gonna have to go with Cannonier winning this fight. He has a striking advantage. He has knockout power. He's had it for years. If Borralho struggles to close the distance and neutralize the striking, he could be at a risk of getting knocked out. Cannonier has demonstrated good takedown defense throughout his career. If he keeps the fight on the feet, I think he's going to avoid Borralho striking, and he can utilize his striking to knock him out, like I said. Cannonier has so much experience against the top level competition in the UFC too. I think that gives him a huge edge against a guy like Borralho who hasn't had that. He's had a one-ranked fight against Paul Craig, and we all know how chinny Paul Craig is. My grandma could knock out Paul Craig. So I think the experience is going to be a huge factor. His power and finishing ability. Cannonier is a significant threat to Borralho. I think if the fight stays on the feet, Cannonier is going to knock him out. So so we all know, in summary of what I just said, Borralho has very strong grappling that could pose a challenge to Jared Cannonier's striking. Like it's a styles versus styles fight. If Borralho gets him to the ground, I could see him submitting. But I think Cannonier has that takedown defense that could knock Borralho out, and I think we could see a huge fraud check right here. So I'm gonna have to go with the crafty vet, and I'm gonna be picking Jared Cannonier to win this fight. I don't know which way he's gonna do it though. I could see him knocking out Borralho, but we don't know his chin. I don't know how good his chin is. So I'm not sure, but Borralho's a great fighter. Regardless, I don't. People are gonna call this a fraud check, but Jared Cannonier should not have been TKO'd in his last fight. If someone's still moving around, they're not KO'd. I mean, Borralho's only loss comes. It was in his second fight. The guy's 1-2, but still, it's his second fight. Both guys were making their debut, and Cannonier Cannonier's just a level above in my opinion. So I'm gonna go with Cannonier by decision.